Hello, everyone, and welcome to Warrior DNA. It is Sunday, the 24th, and I am so excited. I know we're early, and just wanted to let you know we've got a really big event tonight, and that's why I'm coming to you early, because we've got Nick Vujicic in the house tonight, and he's going to be, he actually has been here for 3 different services. So we're going to have him again tonight, and excited to be there with him tonight this evening. We're going to be reaching a lot of people. So tonight I wanted to talk to you, though, about something that I believe, we just came back from this really big event in Detroit, had tens of thousands of people there, and over and over and over again, I heard the same thing. People telling me, well, first off, it was crazy. People coming up to me saying, Staci, I saw your video. And I'm like, what video did you see? And some video, it's like 900,000 views, and thinking, well, what's up with that video? Over and over and over again, what I heard was people saying that what's messing them up are the voices in their head. And so I thought I'm going to talk to you about that today. In fact, create a power playlist that rocks your mental progress. So in my book, Mission Possible, many of you guys have already gotten this. You can get it at staciwallace.com. Zig Ziglar wrote the foreword on this book before he passed away, and it's real special to me. But this is like a 28-day life mastery course. Like, it's a 28-day chunking down everything that your spirit should be maturing in as it relates to in your business, in your family. We cover 5 areas: faith, family, finance, fitness, and freedom. It's like I'm redefining the F word, right? Faith, family, finance, freedom, and faith, family, finance, fitness, and freedom, right? That's 5. So last night, my husband and I, we stayed up. I'm pretty fascinated with tornadoes, and I'm getting ready to start a big coaching program for a select group of people. It's called the Vortex. I haven't done it for about 4 years because it's so intensive. It's extreme. And so I'm giving these folks just a fragment of it for 30 days. It's usually a 90-day program. I'm doing 30 days with these people, and really it is all about, it's called the Vortex, and it's all about changing the landscape of your faith, family, finance, fitness, freedom. It's all about leaving a massive impact. And so last night, my husband and I, we were watching F5s, right? So another F5, faith, family, finance, fitness, freedom. We were watching these F5s, and as you guys know, if you've watched some of my Warrior DNA, I'm very fascinated with science. I'm very fascinated when God wakes me up in the morning and says, study tornadoes, or study vortices, or study sonic boom. I believe that everything in the natural that science is figuring out, there's a supernatural correlation. Same right now with everybody that's doing all these massive studies on what's happening with the solar system, what's happening with the weather system, what's happening in our economic system, what's happening globally. When you get a galactic perspective, you start to see things a little more clearly. Actually, it gives you a lot of hope, because you realize these are just temporary setbacks for a bigger setup. So anyhow, these people were coming to me, and they were talking to me a lot about the challenge that they face in their mind. The challenge of they'll go and they'll push in their business, and then all of a sudden they just lose that love and feeling. They lose the drive. They go to an international event, and then all of a sudden they're back to the same old, same old. Well, how do you conquer those emotions? How do you conquer those feelings of one day I'm feeling really great, and then all of a sudden it's like all the wind is let out of your balloon, right? So I want to tell you a story that's out of my book, Mission Possible. And this is actually, I contacted the family when I wrote my book with Zig Ziglar. I gave him the manuscript. He handed it back to me. You guys have heard this story before. And he said, rewrite it. The third time he sent it back to me. He said, I want you to write it again. And this time, I want you to really consider the source of your stories. Do you know the source of those stories? Or are you just writing them because somebody else put it in a book? And I think we do that a lot. We quote people who quoted people. We find things on Google, but we really don't go to the source of where did it come from. So this particular story, I actually contacted the family to get the real story of Victor Sierra Briakoff. Now, if you've read my book, then you know the story is one of the best stories. It is a story about perspective. See, Victor Sierra Briakoff was a young man that every day he went to school, he was labeled a dunce. Kids teased him because, you know, he wasn't very socially graceful. He was a little awkward. Y'all can relate. He was a little awkward, and he'd get around the other students. He'd get into class, and he was just always asking questions, always asking questions. And so the kids assumed, you know, Victor's just stupid. Victor's dumb. He never understands things the first time. He keeps having to interrupt the class and raise his hand and ask more questions. Well, eventually, not only the kids, but the teachers even thought Victor must have mental issues. Now, isn't it interesting how we label people ADD, ADHD, because we don't like people to think different or behave different, or if their mannerisms are different than what we've considered status quo, then there's something must be wrong with them. Today, they would just give Victor chemicals. They would give him drugs. You know, maybe he's just not all there mentally. Maybe we need to sedate him. Maybe we need to give him some type of chemical drug. Well, back then, that wasn't an option, right? And so basically what they did is they took Victor and they told him, you know, Victor, this school thing's not for you. And we recommend that, you know, go ahead and get a job. It might be better for you. Well, the kids just labeled him a dunce. He ends up leaving school. And in 15 years later, he's going from job to job to job, really just living with this label of a dunce, living with this label that I'm not good enough, living with this label that I'm not smart enough, until one day he enlisted. And when he enlisted, they had to put him through psychological evaluations in order to be a part of military. And so when they did that, one of the things that they had to test him on was his IQ, his intelligent quotient. When he took the IQ test, get this, people, he's lived almost his whole life being labeled a dunce and believing it. Then all of a sudden he takes an IQ test in order to be able to enlist, and he finds out he's got a 161 IQ. He's not a dunce. He's a genius. And the reason why he was raising his hand, because he was seeing beyond the question. He was seeing beyond the curriculum. He was seeing what other kids weren't seeing. And so what today would have labeled him ADD, ADHD, he would have been chemically induced. He was actually a genius and went on to be the head of the Mensa Society that actually equips, and it's where all the geniuses hang out. It's like the hangout crib of geniuses. Anyhow, he's got multiple patents. His life completely shifted. Well, what changed? I mean, did his IQ change? No. Did his surroundings change? No. Did the government change? No. Did his job change? No, he went through job after job. What changed? The day he did that test, he was given a wake-up call, and his perspective shifted. Suddenly, when he looked in the mirror, he didn't see a dunce. He saw a genius. When he looked in the mirror, he didn't see stupid. He saw brilliant. And here's what I want to say to you today. What are the voices that are tearing you up, wearing you down, dragging you out of where you're supposed to be, and putting you on another side of another fence of complete misery? If you're running from one thing to another and you haven't been healed of the voices within you, guess what? No matter where you go, there you are. You're going to take one thing for sure with you to the next place, and that's you. And if you haven't fixed you, then guess what? No matter where you go, there you will be. So how do we start making adjustments so that you can begin to start living a better life, a life where you have productivity, a life where you have joy, a life where you begin to see that the world is shifted into your favor. The law of attraction starts to come towards you. The word of God begins to be manifested in you. How do you do that? You've got to have a wake-up call. You've got to have a shift. You know, in scripture, actually in Acts, it was talking about Paul. Now, I don't know if y'all know the story of Paul, but Paul was a pretty wicked man. Paul basically went out and about. I would like put him like right up there with ISIS, right? He was knocking off Christians, and he was happy to see them imprisoned. He was happy to see them murdered. He believed that Christians were a complete opposite. It was the enemy of his messaging. So he was happy to see Christians taken out. Now, how do you go from that belief system to one day he's going down the road of Damascus, and all of a sudden he's knocked off his donkey with a bright light that blinds him for a short period of time. But instead of blinding him, it was awakening him. Because in that time of blinding, he heard a voice that he hadn't heard before, a voice that said, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Why are you talking about me? Why are you hurting me? Of course, he's thinking, like, what do you mean I'm hurting you? Because anytime you hurt, you talk about, you gossip about, you deny, you reject any one of God's people, you're hurting me. Anytime you act in gossip, murmuring, complaining about another pastor, minister, leader, guess what? You might as well just take a knife and stab yourself in the hand. You're hurting yourself. So how do we get out of this place right now with the world around us? How do we get out of this place where the voices in our head are completely jacked up? How do we get to where we start to have change? Here's what I want you to think about. You know, my friend Zig Ziglar said, your input determines your output. I'm going to say it again. Your input determines your output. Now, when you're going out, you know, I used to play basketball. So before basketball, we would always have a playlist, and it was usually a pretty heavy beat, lots of beats per minute playlist. In fact, I did science on it so that I would have the right beats per minute to get my heart rate elevated to a certain point so that I would actually score better. Believe it or not, it was very scientific to me, even before there was science in sports. But today, obviously, you'll see before a game, athletes will have their headphones on and they're listening. What are they doing? They're playing a playlist that drives certain endorphins in their body to get them to a certain place. Well, the interesting thing about it is you have a playlist that's going on in your head right now that's inducing specific chemicals in your body that are getting the results you're currently getting, whether it's depression, whether it's hype, whether it's good relationships, bad relationships. Maybe it's time you change the playlist. Maybe it's time that you stop playing the same old tunes over and over. And I mean the voices. So what am I talking about here? Let's just look here real quick. I want y'all to look at this little list. Think about this. What are the voices that are playing in your head right now? Because a lot of people have voices that say, you're ugly, right? You're ugly. You're too white. I heard that all the time. Staci, you're just too white. You seem like a black girl, but you're white. You know, you just don't quite fit in on the basketball court. You're too skinny. I know some of you think that's a blessing, but maybe for you, it's you're too fat. And believe it or not, you hear it over and over again. Skinny for a little white girl meant you're flat, right? And I would go to school, and you know, other girls were developing, and I was just still flat as a board. And so I would go to school because people would tell me, you're so skinny, you have to run around the shower to get wet. You know, you're so skinny, your pajamas only have one stripe on them. Skinny jokes, skinny jokes. And eventually I just felt inferior because I had bird legs that some people would think is a blessing. But if you're constantly being dragged down by words, it becomes a playlist of inferiority that keeps you from operating at your optimum proficiency. So I would go to school, I would literally wear my gym clothes underneath my street clothes so that I didn't have to change in front of the other girls. Because God forbid, I didn't want anybody to know that I hadn't developed yet, right? So I'm like 15, 16 years old, and I'm still like flat as a pancake, flat as a wall. But you know what happened? The more they said you're too skinny, you're skinny, you're skinny, the more it became a curse instead of a blessing. You know, maybe you've heard people say, you're so fat, you'll never amount to anything. Maybe they've said you're too poor. Maybe you've lived a life where the voices of shame have completely overtaken you. And so what happens is all of a sudden you get up in the daytime and this playlist plays over and over and over again. You go into a business setting and you hear rejection before you've even done your presentation. When you go in to present for a business, you're already feeling a sense of inferiority. And guess what? Your playlist doesn't just play here. It plays on your whole body. It resonates from you. So when you walk into a room, if you're full of shame and anger and bitterness and rejection, guess what? Other people can hear the music from your soul. They see it on your face. I can't tell you how many times I've sat with my kids and I've said, are y'all happy? Yes, we're happy. They'll be 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'll be then notify your face if you're happy. Why? Because what's going on the inside, your input determines your output. So I want to encourage you to do something today. I want you to get out a piece of paper, maybe draw you know, maybe you're old school and you want to draw a CD, right? What is the CD that's playing in your head? Or maybe it's a playlist. And I want you to just take a clean slate and begin to create new affirmations in your life. I am beautiful. And maybe all of a sudden you start to write these things on the mirror in your bathroom. I double dog dare you. You should come to my bathroom. My husband and I, we both got stuff written all over our mirror. It doesn't take up that much space to do this hair in this face. But I've got affirmations. I've got scriptures. I know where I want to be in my business. I know things I'm wanting to do in my ministry. I know CDs that I'm wanting to record, songs I'm wanting to record. Maybe it's time you start writing out, you are powerful beyond words. Maybe you need to write that, start playing that playlist. Maybe it's that you have favor with man and God. And all of a sudden you start to fill up your playlist with a new message. And every single day, I would encourage you to write these things out and every single day speak them over your life. I am beautiful. I am brave. I love fiercely. I am strong. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. I am more than a conqueror. Fear not, for God is with me. I will not be dismayed, for he is my God. He will strengthen me. He will help me. He will uphold me with his righteous right hand. When I walk into a place, I'm the head and not the tail, above only and not beneath. Blessed coming in and blessed going out. You've got to begin to have so much on the inside of you that when you're down or you're emotionally ill-equipped, that you begin to speak life into your flesh, speak life into your ego, speak a new message and have a new playlist that rather than listening to the voices of your past, you begin to be the voice of your future. And when your voice resonates with God's voice, that's how power begins. Create a power playlist. Now you can create a playlist and be your words. But if you want a power playlist, then you need to figure out, you need to get yourself a Bible and you need to start understanding, or you need to get my book here, Mission Possible, because it is full of the Word of God, all kinds of scriptures. And you need to create a power playlist that rocks your mental progress. So number one, start speaking new words over your life. Number two, get a new musical playlist. If you're listening to all kinds of trash, talking about sleeping around and banging and not banging, but banging, like killing. Oh my gosh. Then you need to get a new playlist. Go get some worship music. My goodness, I went to church this morning over at Potter's house. And I got to tell you, I told my husband, the second I walked in, there's just something about hearing God's people ugly cry and worship from deep down inside and to hear the Spirit of God just when people come together in unity. I got there and I told my husband when I walked in, I said, oh, you're going to have to find me some Kleenexes because this is like doing something in me. You've got to find out what fills you up. What takes you to that place that says, I am more than a conqueror. And I want to challenge you. Change the place. You're not a dunce. You're not ignorant. You're probably a genius. And you know what? I know this, that if Christ is in you, he's the hope of glory, then you have everything you need today to conquer the world that you're living in, your relationships, your business, your family. If you got the same voices, here's how you know if you're playing an old playlist. The minute somebody gets on your nerves, you go, blah, blah, blah. You got all that hate coming out. Your input determines your output. The minute somebody does you wrong, you know, and you start falling out and you start having all kinds of hissy fits and attitudes. Somebody rejects you 12 times and all of a sudden you're going to quit your business because, boy, you didn't want 12 no's in a row. You know what? You got to get to a place that the playlist on the inside of you is so much greater than the playlist on the outside of you that you are not stoppable. That's why we say unstoppable. That's why we call ourselves unstoppable warriors. Remember, warriors don't retreat, they reload. And that's what you've got to do today. Don't retreat, erase, and reload the playlist of your mind. And remember, now is the time. This is the place. And you are the one that's going to help us make life better for many. Please share this with somebody that you know that needs hope, needs life today. Somebody in business, somebody that's your coworker. Share it with them and let them know that this is a message designed just for them to be the head and not the tail, above only and not beneath, and to know that this is going to be a great week to hit the reset button, clear the old playlist, and start anew. God bless everyone. Have a great day.